Hi guys. So I actually didn't really explain what MuleSoft does, and it's kind of a funny name, so maybe I'll explain. So we're actually an enterprise integration and API software company. And so MuleSoft, the name Mule, came from an open source technology that our founder founded when he was working as an integration architect at JP Morgan Chase in the UK. And he was fed up with doing manual point-to-point integrations, writing the code. It's very demanding and very rigorous. So he basically came up with an open source platform to make connecting applications, business applications, very simple. And since we've grown our platform, we've grown our business. I joined about 2 years ago, and we were 200 employees. I was probably the 200th employee, and now we're about 550, almost 600. So really fast growth startup in San Francisco. And our mission is to connect the world's applications, data, and devices. And so in order to do that, we really need to go through our partners. And it's really important for us to scale that we have a successful channel model. And those partners are system integrators, so Deloitte, Accenture, PwC, the big consultants that you've all heard of, I'm sure. And then also a ton of small regional partners. So we have over 200 partners, around 217 last time I counted, all over the world. And so it's a combination of these huge beasts of organizations, such as Deloitte, very hierarchical, and then these tiny mom and pop shops. So it's all over the spectrum. And we adopted Bloomfire before I was there, and we used it internally, mostly for sales enablement. I think it replaced our internal wiki, so pretty much everyone was a part of it, and it was for like legal documentation, sales documentation, marketing presentations, and then also asking questions and everything rather than going through email. And I spun up a unique instance because I was tasked with creating a partner portal where our partners can access enablement materials and all the materials that we would have to access internally, basically, but sometimes slightly different, sometimes exactly the same. So Bloomfire, it was really easy to check a box and push that content over to partners. So I created it in a couple days, rather than spinning up like a whole Salesforce partner ecosystem, which takes months or years even to become successful. And so we're really focused on having it. We love the simple UI, and we kind of use it, as Evan talked about, enabling his customers. That's kind of how we're enabling our customers on it, with our partner positioning for sales, and then exposing demo instances, stuff like that. So there's definitely more we can be doing with it since we spun it up before all these great functions were added. But it's worked really well, and our partners love it. They love the UI. And so, yeah, that's me.
Cool. All right. So I'm Josh with SpareFoot. Didn't really introduce SpareFoot very well necessarily either, so just quickly, imagine you're moving somewhere cross-country. You've got a whole bunch of extra things, and as part of that move, you need to find a place to put all that stuff, right? So that's where self-storage can be really useful. In a world before SpareFoot, the way you probably would have found that self-storage unit is you would have, maybe if Google existed at the time, let's assume Google exists too, you're going to Google it, you're going to get a bunch of phone numbers of storage facilities, you're going to call them, or maybe you're just going to be crazy and drive with your truck full of things to the first place you find, and you're going to try to move into that, and it's just generally it's going to be a really painful process. Very opaque. It's not a very transparent industry. And for the storage facilities themselves, it's hard for them in that world to find customers, right? The sort of modern customer isn't buying in that traditional way or doesn't want to buy in that traditional way, so they have a challenge too. So SpareFoot, founded 2008, right here in downtown Austin, about 230 people. Our job is to make finding and booking a self-storage unit across the US really easy. Make it something you can do in minutes, whether you're on a website, mobile device, or over the phone. So one of the things that's really unique to self-storage is that there's this, unlike maybe hotels where Priceline and Expedia and Orbitz, all these guys have spent millions of dollars teaching consumers to buy a hotel room online. We have not spent millions of dollars. We're the only ones trying to do this anyway. We have not spent millions of dollars, and Shatner is not out there convincing consumers across America to buy storage units online, right? So they're going to still want to buy this fairly traditionally, right? So roughly 1 in 10 visitors to one of our sites is going to pick up the phone and call us. So I started at SpareFoot 3 years ago, and we knew this was already coming. At the time, we had the equivalent of maybe 10 or 15 people taking inbound calls from consumers who needed help booking a storage unit. But we already knew that curve was there was some major growth ahead of that. So my background's product. We thought of that team really as an extension of the product. It's as product-y in a sense as our web experience or our mobile experience. It's just that experience you're going to have over the phone. So we developed that as a product. So we don't have the luxury of Ogilvy developing all of our content, but the thing that Evan was describing that Amex is doing for their teams with Ogilvy is exactly how we decided to implement Bloomfire a number of years ago. We at the time, the team that takes calls is called ACE. It stands for Amazing Customer Experience. They're all here in Austin, 7th and Brazos. You can kind of notice us if you know the area, kind of where you guys are going to be eating tonight. Just go up. There's a floor right above a place called Slake that definitely looks like a group of 100 people who are probably doing some sort of work, but it looks kind of fun too. That's where the ACE team is. And so that team is an inbound sales organization, but we try to do this with a service mindset, right? Same kind of approach that Evan probably is working with the Amex team to do. So we selected Bloomfire because knowledge bases really do suck. The traditional software stack for this is awful. A wiki is too painful, really it's too technical. And so Bloomfire seemed kind of right in the middle of something that we could sort of socialize and source content from at the time a team of 10, but could kind of expand as we grew. So Bloomfire has been in the ACE organization as we've grown from when we brought it in. ACE was maybe 8 people in Austin, now it's 100 plus 30 in Manila. And that is the tool that everybody is using on a daily basis to understand how to do the job at a really high level. So for instance, if you're in HipChat and which is a chat platform we use for all sorts of things, you're in HipChat, you remember the ACE team, and you have a question about how the latest rebate offer works, you can sort of exclamation Bloomfire space rebate, and HipChat will respond back with a link to the Bloomfire article, or a team member will point out that it's there, or you'll have gone there yourself. So Bloomfire is the place where truth exists inside the ACE team, and that combines, probably as you guys would imagine in your world, with an internal web application to help people book storage units and some CRM-y stuff as well. But definitely our goal is to make Bloomfire the place to go to find the truth about things. But we do that in a very bottom-up kind of way. Team members generate the content. We trust in a wiki kind of style approach that if you put something up that's wrong, it won't stay wrong for very long because somebody's going to fix that. And then we've layered in some things like Melissa, who's back there, her role. Melissa spends 80% of her time taking calls, but her sort of non-call time, we do a thing across all of ACE where we do it this way. Everybody on the ACE team, all 100, have at least 20% of their time is self-directed to attack kind of problems to help run the organization. Melissa was a member of training originally, and now she developed a role called sort of a curator role for Bloomfire, where she at least makes sure that things that are really wrong have been fixed quickly, or that content we're missing is sort of sought out and all of that. So it's a fairly mature now deployment, I guess, of Bloomfire. Nice long tail effect now where we have years of content going back, but it's still highly relevant. And now when we hire a new ACE team member, right at the beginning they have access to everything they could need. So it's definitely made a cool solution and has fulfilled that original thing we wanted of a place where people could find truth and create truth with very little friction. So that's SpareFoot.
My name's Keith Sheardown, and I only have a handful of people, and most of you probably use Bloomfire to sort of help enable your business, and I'm really tied in with Bloomfire because it really is my business. So we sell knowledge as a service, and our only vertical is the transit industry. So transit systems like Capital Metro here in Austin, their people, when they start, whether they're in maintenance or operations, they get all their training on the front end, and the problem we were trying to solve was how to give them information throughout the life of their career. So started doing e-learning 10 years ago, and it was kind of cumbersome. People still weren't learning. Drifted over to Bloomfire 2 years ago. And in the last 12 months, we've grown from 50 to maybe 700 members, and really, really well received. It starts with the simplicity of the application, the fact that mobile is really easy to use, and a big part of our focus is, I spoke earlier of it, but is on the content. So we're continually iterating and improving the content and learning with the content that we create and how to do it better. And I guess the other piece I'll maybe share with you is there's a lot of it that's used for onboarding, but now we're going further upstream, starting with pre-boarding. Our view is that the most excited someone is when they work for a company is the day that they find out that they get the job. So from that point till the day they actually start working for the firm is a pre-boarding opportunity where Bloomfire, for free, we can give them access to that information. And we're just diving into that pond now, but our view is that they're really going to get immersed in that content so that the day they actually walk in the door to start their first day of employment, they're already somewhat capable and ready to be onboarded properly and get more out of that experience. And then just on Monday of this week, I was shooting video at a college in Houston, and just decided then and there that we'll give free access to the students at that school that are taking technical training. So then I put a post on our community and basically offered it free to any school that's associated with any of our members, and we've already got 3 or 4 that have reached out to us. So even before the pre-boarding, get it to a point where it's people to get them interested in a career in the industry that we're focused in. So Bloomfire is really enabling us to be able to do that without any additional spend at all. So just a couple of thoughts.
So who has questions for the panel? Melissa?
I was fascinated by what Keith read. You were talking about a pre-boarding. Can you tell me about some of the things you include with that? That sounds really interesting.
Well, the problem that we've all had whenever we start in a company is that the last big company I went to work for, it took me 30 days to figure out all the acronyms, and this was 20,000 employees in the company, and there wasn't even information. Like, they had all kinds of tools, but it was hard to find this stuff. So basically the idea is, and we've just launched it with a customer in San Diego, that now when they hire an employee, they get membership in Transit Academy, and they're able to, on their own, just breeze through all that material. But that's when they're the most engaged. Like, there's no warts with the company because they haven't even started their first day yet. So it's just an idea to sort of leverage the content we've got and how to get them more engaged in the company, and also the learning material that they have access to. And the fact that it was a free was a real kicker.
Yeah, Caleb.
I have a logistics question about that. So we have all of our single sign-on. New hires aren't going to get that until their second or third day. Is there a way to give these people access to this community?
Yeah, we don't have single sign-ons, so.
The single sign-on is tied to a specific community, so you could spin up a second community for those pre-boarding.
Good question. Okay.
Access and then cross-publish just the content that you want for them.
So we can have. Okay, great.
Yeah.
I have a question about the content. So you also talk about, that you're providing or that you're curating and sourcing content. What I'm also interested in our community, we want to provide content for contributors in terms of content to our community, but we also want people to engage with that content. So through comments or even sometimes editing, so we have additional authors, but in particular kind of commenting so that around particular topics that we're interested in, whether it's a particular question or a challenge or an issue or a topic, that comment chain, so to speak, in the end builds or increases the collective knowledge around that particular issue. So kind of wondering how that has worked in your organization, because I heard most people just talking about pushing out content, and so the commentary part, I haven't really heard anything much about that yet.
Well, I could talk about our approach to that. The first bit was, how do we get content originally into Bloomfire, right? So that was part of it. What we tried to avoid was a Herculean effort to guess at what everybody would want. So the approach we took actually was to use questions as the way of identifying the content that people needed. So we originally rolled this out, and this is pretty much how it works today on the ACE team as well, is you're encouraged to just go to Bloomfire and search, right? But if you can't search, ask a question, and then we develop content around the question. So the way I would think about your question then about like, is dialogue adding value in my mind to the post itself or to the question itself? Usually what we tend to see in the comment threads on a question is the sort of back and forth of trying to figure out the truth about the bit of content, right? Oh, I think it's this and then this. And so the utility of those kinds of conversations as to sort of being actionable, I guess, from a knowledge standpoint, isn't great. So we tend to use the question and all of that dialogue, right? That's great. We don't delete that, right? That's part of the historic record, right? But the post that comes off of that, really the dialogue around our post tends to be like, awesome, that's great, what about this other thing, right? We would probably use other products, I would say, to sort of collaborate over a topic or an initiative. People, at least on our team, are looking to Bloomfire as a place to either source new information or find it. We would probably use something like Asana or a Google Doc to be the place where we would maybe work on an initiative. So you certainly could do that in Bloomfire, it's just not our way of using it. It would probably get confusing for our team, would see that as kind of using it across purposes a little bit. So it's really not inconceivable though, it's pretty cool as an idea. But yeah, we let the question sort of function as the place where that might live, then the official answer gets agreed upon, that post is made, and that's sort of the genesis of a thing.
So our partner community, we don't enable like much social stuff because they're all competitors pretty much. But our internal instances, we have some collaboration, but it's kind of like what Josh said, like it's mostly people asking for content that isn't in Bloomfire already, so it needs to be created, and so it's more about content. It's not just back, I don't know, it doesn't add that much value.
Ours is maybe somewhat unique because it's all, we sell our service as a subscription. So what we do, we try and sell, we try and have people pay us to create content. So most of our customers, the deals that we typically do, they're typically around $25,000. And for that, what we'll do is we'll give them a 1-year subscription to our community, and we'll do 25 free custom videos for them. So in effect, it's not free, they're paying 25 grand. Then what we do, my background isn't training or software or e-learning or any of that. I used to run maintenance organizations and equipment for a subway car manufacturer and then a bus company before that. So we start with the business problem. So what is it, what problems are you trying to improve or resolve or address? So from a transit system, universally they're trying to improve the reliability of their fleet, and we drill down to sort of the root cause and help them get there to understand what's contributing to the defects of their equipment. So we're a solution provider. We help get to the root cause, and then we come up with content that actually addresses the root cause defects to improve the overall performance of their business. And then we'll bump into other issues where we were doing work in New York, and the last night we were there, the general manager came to me and said, we just had our second pedestrian fatality in a month, can you help us? So the next day we grabbed the video crew and go into Queens and come up with some great content and great material, and a lot of listening to Evan's presentation earlier, and come up with specific content along those lines. A lot of it has to do with your subject matter expert, and we've failed early and failed often on SMEs. Half the stuff we did last year we threw in the garbage, but we try and use people within the specific teams. So even a person that fuels a bus or cleans a bus, will involve them. One of the best subject matter experts we had was a person that actually did that. It was fantastic. But it was just a fluke, and we continue to go looking for subject matter experts. Monday, we saw a training instructor at a college in Houston that I happened to find on LinkedIn. Had a couple conversations with him. The guy was fantastic and shot 4 hours of video on Monday, and so it varies, is the shorter answer to your question.
Brett?
Talk a little bit about how you manage onboarding for end users, and how you feel like that positively or negatively impacts engagement.
On onboarding them onto the Bloomfire app,
That's right.
I do a lot of screen flow videos, so it's actually me moving the mouse on the screen, voiceover narration, and we've got half a dozen of those, and we find them really helpful. And then when a member first signs on, that's actually a link that we'll send them, and it's right on our features banner at the top.
So in terms of onboarding for us, we suffer from the affliction of many technology-oriented startups. We have all the SaaS products. So you started SpareFoot, and one challenge you definitely have is figuring out what tool to use for what, and you haven't necessarily used any of these tools, right? So what's the difference between Asana or Bloomfire or Salesforce or Pingboard or Google Docs, which I've never used before, all these things. So, our approach to Bloomfire is just to, again, this is just the place where you find, shit you need to know. So, you've got to use this. You got to deal with this. We use, certainly some of the things we've done that are important are we've used Okta to solve single sign-on across multiple applications, right? So when you start at SpareFoot on the ACE team, you go to your Okta homepage, all of the SaaS applications you're going to use are there. So we demystify problem one, which is just where are the applications I use, right? And then sort of problem two on that becomes, again, how do I know what to use for what? Right through, first 2 weeks on the ACE team, you're in a thing we call flight school, 2 weeks of training led by the team members themselves. So Bloomfire is just kind of a thread through that. We're just sort of cluing you in on the fact that that is part of how you're going to find things out. Certainly pointing to that as often as we can. Data is certainly replicated between training and Bloomfire. And then, post-graduation, that's just going to be an ongoing thread. So our view on this is you're just going to have to deal with this and figure it out. And if you don't have the technical ability to use a very easy wiki, you should not have been hired in the first place. This is a major problem. So I think those things, it's fairly self-selecting. We've hired people who can handle this, right? We've prepared people for some degree of uncertainty around products, and they deal with that. We've made sure that it is an authentic resource, not just some leader's good idea of a thing people should use. And so since it has a very practical benefit to people doing their job, that is taking care of itself. I will say the coolest thing I've heard so far from this panel is the idea of sort of that pre-flight idea of how can you set up a way to really streamline that lead-up period. Now, hopefully our team members' best day isn't the day they start, right? Hopefully it's just getting better and better. So our motives might be a little bit different, but I would say that's cool, right? Because that is definitely, for us as a team that's grown so much, a company that's growing a lot, it's definitely a first day at school kind of phenomenon that is very intimidating to come into an environment like that. It's really cool and fun, but it is very intimidating. So I like that idea of maybe a separate community, shared. I would probably, just for what it's worth, do it with a shared username password. New hire at sparefoot.com with password, self-storage or something like that, and just write it in such a way that it's not super secret, but still a little bit gated, and then just let any new SpareFoot person use that. That would be kind of cool. So that was a great thing you guys are doing. So I stole that now. It's mine.
That was my idea.
Mine, Melissa. Mine.
Well, what I like about Bloomfire is that it's so painfully easy to use that you don't really need to be onboarded. And so that's kind of how we do it with our partners. I mean, they're technical consultants, so if they can't figure that out, that's pretty pathetic. But yeah, so I have a demo video that, I always put front center, but I don't really think that there's not any real onboarding that goes on, and that's kind of the point. And we have a very small global channel team, so we have 217 partners globally, but we have maybe 10 channel managers globally. So they each have a ton of partners. They're trying to build these strategic relationships and pipeline everything. And their last priority is to enable them on how to learn things and be self-sufficient. So so the point is, that's what's so great about Bloomfire, and that's why it's of value to us and our partners, is because we don't need to do any onboarding. It's all there.
Fantastic, John.
To push back on that a little bit, there's onboarding on how to use the software, but there's also onboarding on the community standards.
Mhm.
How to post, what to post, when to post, and so on. So how do you prepare your users on that side of things?
Yeah, so I guess that's a non-issue really, because we don't have our partners post.
Right.
It's all push. So for that specific case, we did build out a separate community for our Cisco relationship, which is a strategic alliance of ours, and it's a little different because they're an OEM partner, so they embed our software in their technology, and they white label it, so it's not called MuleSoft, so you would never know. And so that they are contributing to, but that's a very different use case because it's a different relationship, it's a different investment. So that, that needs more onboarding, but that's also more guarded for a specific group, leadership group. So, non-issue. But internally, we also have our internal instance, which we've really defined, kind of like Josh's team and so many of your teams, what content goes in Bloomfire versus Chatter, which is another social learning tool that we use, I guess. And Chatter is more for real-time communication, and informal communication, whereas Bloomfire is the source of truth. Official documents that you can use, such as presentations, of course, they're all editable, so you can download them and make it your own, but they're the marketing-approved version.
Yeah, so our point of view around sort of those community guidelines would be, I think the wiki model does a pretty good job of take Wikipedia. I think they've done studies on this, right? If we all went to Wikipedia right now and tried to insert something wrong, that self-manages pretty well, right? People will correct that fairly quickly. So like our main idea on this is, if there's bad information out there, that should self-correct if people use it, right? If people don't notice there's bad information, that means they're not using that article, which means it's probably not even impacting us negatively for it to be bad information in the first place. Everybody's enabled to contribute. Everybody's enabled to do lots of things. We haven't had any real instances of abuse of that at all, ever. The biggest risk we've seen from it is that you'll just get some goofy content every now and then that you just want to adjust and reposition a little bit. The general message to the team members is we've hired you because you're a grown-up. We're going to treat you like a grown-up. Part of being a grown-up at work is you contribute to our knowledge, and we assume you use it. If you're struggling to figure out how to use this, you're surrounded by people who are using this, and it's easy. And then the real thing, I think, the key behind all that is the social kind of cues around just making sure, as long as this is delivering value, the team is going to continue to nudge people back to it. We don't have to rely on sort of leadership-y, business-y kind of moves to make people do this stuff. So this has got to deliver value to end users, and it just goes back to that means the content has to be meeting their needs, not some need I have to distribute content to people. So our team is measured in large part on their performance, their ability to convert a caller into a reservation. If the content helps them do that effectively, they're better at their jobs. They'll go there and find that. If there's no content for that, they're not going to use this thing. So, I mean, that's the key, is the content's just got to line up really closely with what you care about, not necessarily SpareFoot's idea about what you might find interesting. In fact, the content that's the most useless on the site is probably the stuff that at some point I decided somebody would benefit from knowing, that is like utterly irrelevant, really, and it's one of those sad little articles, despite me pinning it to the top, nobody's clicking on it, and I'll just quietly, go away from it at a certain point. So, yeah, that's how we do it.
From a guideline standpoint, we don't moderate anything. 700 members, all kinds of posts, and we've never had to delete anything. So,
Just to shift the discussion a little bit, less from I'm posting something wrong, I'm posting something bad, to I'm not tagging this in a way that will help people find it down the line. I'm choosing the wrong category for this. structure that you set up for it?
I'll go back and actually phone that individual and help them and coach them.
Okay.
And then we'll go back, and typically most of the tutorials we've already got, so we'll actually republish them again, but loudly. And but to go back to your earlier comment as far as getting them to contribute, the first challenge they have is the first time their name's in lights and they do something. So we try to make it easy by actually asking the community a question. And lately what we've been doing is we announce when we're going to a particular company or organization to create content, and we ask them what they would like us to produce. And there's specific videos, so we get input and insight, and that's an easy softball for them to sort of take a swing at and give us some suggestions on what they'd like to see. The second piece is we're trying to help and coach and enable people to shoot video. So the phone is real simple. The mobile application really is, it's dead simple, and most people have a great video camera right on their phone that they can use. And then for the real power users, we're trying to get them hooked up with great camera gear, help them with editing, voiceover narration. We give them music soundtracks that we've bought that they can use. So the more we can get real powerful producers of content, then that's only going to make the library of information that much better.
Yeah, and on tagging and all those things, I mean, Bloomfire definitely is kind of a complex system, in terms of when you talk about the tagging and all that, getting that right. So part of that is we just let it organically evolve. Like, that's fine if people are doing goofy things with tagging. But certainly one of the reasons Melissa carved out her role to help us curate it is to bring, when we identify that, okay, like, we've got some weird things happening here, allocating some time to sort of, re-tagging things, that's fine, don't hurt anybody's feelings, right? Just we're re-tagging it, no big deal. Or more importantly, probably for us, just like assembling things into series, because they are logically grouped together, featuring things. That's really where we see the curation role in our world, right? Because it's sort of this bottom-up content model. It's really making sure that after things are getting published, we're rationalizing that a little bit. But again, try not to be too heavy with it, because we don't want to spend our time kind of organizing. We trust that people can find it with the search and all that, and they're generally pretty successful with it.
Great. Maybe one more question, Katie.
For about a year now, and we're kind of at that point where we want to reassess how people are using it, maybe do some focus groups, and really just go back to the listening stage, like in this life cycle of knowledge management, just to make sure that I'm not making assumptions that were true a year ago, but now they're not true. So I didn't know if any of you have gone through that process of reassessing how it works, how it's architected, how everybody interacts with it. Have you done any focus groups? Have you done any of that kind of exploration post-deployment?
Yeah, so we go directly to the partners and get feedback from them, obviously. Every manager should be meeting with their partner every other week about, unless they're, a partner that doesn't really drive any business. So, yeah, just in meetings, that's how we field most of our feedback, is live conversations. We do surveys and stuff as well, but just analyzing the data, and then having real conversations. That's how I get feedback.
Yeah, for us, obviously, because we've had that deployment for a while, things get, don't necessarily match up the same way, the way it would have worked with 15 people and 50, then 100, now an international team and then an Austin team. So I think, one of the challenges with working with a cool SaaS product that releases frequently is features are starting to outpace our ability to leverage them, right? Like, full text indexing of videos is awesome, but we'd love to have great video content of our own first, so we have our own kinds of things, I guess, right? We've got a video out there. So I would just say, we've gone back and refactored things around maybe what's the most rational way to use communities now that we've been doing it for a while? What are the pros and cons of publishing to groups? Those kinds of things. And then really just, again, doing our best we can to look at user engagement and see like what are the things our team members are saying they're getting value from this, and where again are they feeling disconnected. One of the things that sort of was an interesting challenge was the question of, you have a cloud storage solution where you're creating maybe a document in place one, and then are you replicating that when you put that in Bloomfire, or creating it from scratch? And so that's probably an area, a couple of the areas like where we want to polish things a little bit better, is to avoid duplication of content, multiple maintenance of the same things. We don't have a budget of money for this, we have people's time, and so it's just, I think the next level of growth for us is how do we get from 100 people to 200 people and not have this feel crazy, in a certain way. So I just think for us, it's having some sort of cadence of going back and looking at the new features that have come out, seeing does that feature solve a problem that we were working around in an odd way. Groups is a good example of that. Like we solved that problem originally with probably categories and tags, and then groups came out and we didn't really adopt it the right way, and then we had to go back, blow it up, and start over. So, we just kind of prepare our user, again, our luxury is our users are prepared for a fair amount of uncertainty on a day-to-day basis. I would have a different challenge if I had to sort of, for kind of your world, right, keep that polished on the client-facing side and all of that. So our luxury is we can get away with a lot of kind of uncertainty in the deployment and mess around with things. So I don't know if I don't know if you can do that either, but we get away with that. So
I had something to add. So also leverage the customer success team here. I feel like that's like the biggest thing for me. I meet every week now with Amanda, and she's been so helpful in just like doing analysis and helping, implement best practices. So that is key.
Phone Amanda daily. Yeah, kudos, and I just want to jump on that one. The short answer to your question, we did a survey of our members last August, and we plan to do it again this August. Just 6 questions. 5 of them was really to understand and learn, and the 6th one was self-serving, which was, would you recommend that your company invest in Transit Academy? And 100% of our members agreed or strongly agreed. So then that allowed me to go to those client managers to sort of say, see. So, but yeah, we wanted to understand where they learned, what their views were on classroom learning, how much of their knowledge they learned on the job, and why they value learning from video. So we got a lot of great insights from that, and our plan is to do that annually and sort of baseline it and learn and go. So yeah,
Great.
There's SurveyMonkey, and it's free. And